Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Owner's Box After Dark. I am your host, Mark Farinella, the former assistant sports editor, Patriots beat writer, and a million other jobs. Get that over my shoulder. A little rusty at this. For a daily newspaper down here in southeastern Massachusetts, 41 years in that position, and now happily retired and podcasting and doing all sorts of wonderful things and getting old. It is, what is tonight? It's Monday, the 23rd of August, 2021, and you're probably saying, Farinella, where the hell have you been? Because the last one of these things I did, I think, was on July 31st or August 1st, somewhere around there. So yeah, I've been lollygagging. What's he been doing? Lollygagging. You know what movie that comes from, right? Okay. Bull Durham. We're recording this here in the palatial confines of Fulton Pond Studios here in Mansfield, Massachusetts. It is very stormy outside right now, and that's the aftermath, I guess you might call it, of Tropical Storm Henri. Yeah, I heard some people were calling it Henry. It comes out Henri. It's Henri. It's French. What have you been doing, Mark? Well, you know what? Sometimes you just kind of, things get away from you, you know? And this is one of those times that I think that happened. And there were a number of reasons why. And I will try to go into some of the reasons as we put up an episode here, long overdue, I might add. And a lot of it has to do with planning for the future and trying to figure out how we're going to go forward in a lot of this. Virtually unchanged, I suspect, but because we're about getting to that time of year when things are cranking up again, and we're looking at the possibility of going back to work. And we will have something about that at the end of this episode, or after the first commercial break. We will talk about what the future holds for my return to the high school sports airwaves. Yay! Oh boy. So, but in the meantime, well, let's get into the story of what I've been doing, and why has it been 3+ weeks since the last time I did an episode of The Owner's Box After Dark. Well, let's see. I got back from vacation, and I did an episode. I do remember that. And, you sort of settle in. You want to get things back to kind of normal around here. And I've got to admit, in retirement, maybe I don't have the energy or the drive to do a million things all at once, because I don't have to. I've got plenty of time to do things, and to try to, live a more chilled out life. It's that new drug, chillaxin, that I like to take. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to get a sense of equilibrium in my life, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job, but there are issues that arise that tend to cut into that, and some of them are medical, and that's part of life and part of growing older, I guess. But the first thing I did when I got back is something that I really enjoy doing a lot of. It's going and watching some summer league basketball, and I've mentioned it in previous episodes, and actually devoted a couple of episodes of the original gangsta of podcasts, The Owner's Box, the audio-only version. I spoke with Mansfield High School boys basketball coach Mike Vaughn, who is also the major domo at Mass Premier Courts in Foxborough, where most of our local schools participate in summer league basketball. And we enjoy that so much, and yet I didn't get to see as much of it as I would like. In fact, I couldn't get to the playoffs this year, and it's kind of a shame. I also wanted to go see the Wally Seaver Invitational Tournament, which is competed locally, and it included something like 130 teams from various high schools in 3 states, I think, and just couldn't do it. I had other things pop up during the scheduling time, but I did get to see some games of some of the local teams, and as you can see, some of these clips that I've taken, I didn't really, do much in terms of really in-depth looking at it. I just wanted to see how the kids were doing and how everything was going along after a year off, because as you know, because of the pandemic, and we are in about week 75, 76, somewhere around there, and it's still going strong, as we know. We did not get a chance to have any summer leagues last year around here. The state clamped down on all sorts of athletic pursuits during the summer of 2020, and as a result, there were no summer leagues. And even though high school sports were competed last year, they were significantly altered in terms of schedule length, some even with the rules being changed. We somehow have gotten through that, and I hope that we are on the verge of starting up a more normal season coming up in just a few weeks. But I'm a little worried about the Delta variant, and I've mentioned that to you several times over the length of these podcasts, and the growth in the past 3 weeks of the Delta variant has been incredibly frightening. In fact, as I will repeat later on in this episode, I just had my 4th COVID test. Now, if I had still been working for the Associated Press and had been doing any part-time work covering the Patriots training camp, I would have had to have gone to multiple testing sessions, because that's what the NFL requires of anybody who's reporting on their teams. I've been spared that, but my friend Glenn Farley, who is my broadcast partner for King Philip Regional High School football and a couple of other sports, he has actually taken over my old job, and I'm happy about that, as the stringer for the AP when the regular guys can't go. And I know he's had to go through multiple COVID tests and all that during this whole period of time. So I went for my 4th test recently. No real worries. I didn't really have any issues. The only thing I had was a little bit of sniffling, and this is my time of year for a second wave of allergies. I have most airborne allergies, like we like to call it hay fever, but it's, grasses and trees and mold and all sorts of crap. And so as a result, I get stuffy at certain times, maybe more at night than otherwise. And, I was a little concerned because I just thought that, hey, I'd had a nice, for the most part of the summer, I was in pretty good shape. I was breathing well at night. I thought that, I'd gotten over the issue of maybe February, March, April, that period of time. I had some rough allergy problems. But, they came back. And so, when you're sniffling a lot, you wonder in this day and age, oh, God, I must have COVID. Now, I've done all the things I think I should do. I've definitely masked. I've masked up for the last 5 weeks, basically. And even though only now are they starting to suggest it's a good idea again, I've kept my distance from a lot of people, as I tend to have done throughout this entire pandemic. I think they're happier about it than I am. And I also have taken my temperature frequently, and there's never been any kind of fever or anything like that. So I went ahead and scheduled a test, even though I didn't really have any doubts that I would be negative. And yes, the test came back negative. So, once again, 4 for 4, still on the upper side of all this, and I hope I stay there. But I think it's good to know that as you kind of approach other issues that are popping up. And I've had a few other medical issues. Before I get into that, though, I did enjoy the time I spent watching some of the high school sports, the summer league games, And one of my dearest friends in this podcasting effort is, of course, Foxborough High School girls basketball coach Lisa Downs. And she was my guest on one of the episodes of the original the Owner's Box podcast, the audio podcast. And one of the questions I asked her was about how important it was for her and her teams to be back on the court in the summertime, because even though they did play 10 or 11 games during the pandemic shortened season, I think she would be the first to say, and she has been the first to say, that her team, maybe as good as it was, may not have been as good as it could have been because of the lack of summer league ball. So here's what she had to say about what importance there was to get the kids back on the court. How disruptive and frustrating was it for you personally to have that disruption in the routine? I mean, it changed your lifestyle for a year.
It was rough. And like you said, I am this very type A, so I needed to have everything organized and be able to plan ahead. And there was no planning ahead. You were kind of just hoping that games would be, go on as scheduled. You were hoping to have another game added to your schedule. They never happened, but again, you couldn't really plan ahead for anything besides the day in front of you. So, and that was stressful. And I think that's part of the reason why, I of course enjoyed coaching the girls, but it wasn't that same enjoyment.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to this upcoming season.
Okay, and now that interview was done just before I went on vacation, and I posted the podcast during my first week of my vacation, so I haven't really done anything else in that area since. But now I'm actually turning my attention to other things. But as I mentioned, one thing that I had to turn my attention to were some medical issues, and I don't want to scare anybody, because a lot of this was just regular checkups and just following with the need to be vigilant about things that happen to me because of my age and past issues and so on and so forth. So while there were some very positive things to come out of it, including my better control over my diabetes, which I don't know if you folks know what an A1C is, but it's kind of a long-term sugar number that you get. It tells you kind of how your sugar, how your body is getting rid of sugar and taking care of keeping your numbers, in a tolerable range. The best part for a type 2 diabetic like myself would be to have an A1C under 7, so you'd be in the 6s somewhere. Now, I had gotten up to 8.3, I believe it was, in my last measurement in March. So in July, in my normal checkup, I was very pleased to see that my A1C had gone down from 8.3 to 7.1. Still not under 7, but we're getting close, and that's something that I really felt good about. And seriously, all my other numbers in my blood tests and other things were really right down the middle of the normal range. So other than issues with blood sugar, and other kind of issues like that, I've really not had much to complain about, and I had even less to complain about this time. That was good. But I had a couple of issues pop up, and one of them is something that's happened to me in the past and really happened a lot to my mother as she was getting older. It's called cellulitis. It's something you get in your legs. Now, I know I say the word cellulite, and the first thing some of you probably thought of was a fat ass. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Cellulitis is an infection of the skin, and sometimes it happens because your immune system's a little bit compromised, and diabetes will do that. I've always had, because my left leg has been the damaged one for most of my life, and of course, as you know, I had knee surgery last August 11th, so it's been more than a year now. I've had a lot of fluid buildup in that leg, and the fluid buildup has lent itself to development of a little bit of a cellulitic condition. Now, I have a little band just above my ankle and below my calf. It's about maybe 1.5 to 2 inches wide all the way around the leg. And sometimes it gets really red, and then sometimes it disappears. recently, and I think it was in June, I first noticed that the redness area was starting to increase, and that was when I was having a lot of swelling in my knee, and the swelling would continue on down the leg and down towards the ankle because of just the amount of fluid that was being created from the aftermath of my surgery. So I mentioned it to my primary care physician, although I couldn't get a hold of him directly, but I left a message, and apparently I had left a message at a time when he was on vacation, so they sent me to someone else who didn't take my word for it that I knew how to treat this. Basically, it's a 10-day regimen of antibiotics, and it's gone, usually, or at least reduced significantly. So they sent me for an ultrasound of my leg to see if there were any blood clots or any issues that were being raised. Well, I had no issues of that sort, but they didn't address the redness. So in July, I had another meeting with my PCP at the same time as I found out about the lower A1C number. And I had to tell him about it, and he looked at it and he suggested I should have an ultrasound of my heart, because maybe that was having something to do with the issues of fluid buildup. So I did. Still didn't address the issue of the redness, though. And that examination showed one thing that was kind of scary until I had it explained to me. At first, it said it sounded kind of ominous. It said that I had a thickening of the wall of my left ventricular cavity in my heart. And, you look that up. You don't even bother to read beyond that. You look it up. You suddenly go to Google and you look at every WebMD thing, and all of a sudden I see increased risk of heart attack. Oh, my God. So, yeah, okay, I figured that was it. It's about time, 67 years, about time the ticker is going to go. Then the leg the infection in the leg really started blowing up. And so I called in early August, and again, my doctor goes off for a couple of weeks, so they sent me to another PCP, and she was very thorough, read my reports, read all the things, read everything about the heart issue and all that. And she realized that what I was telling her was basically the same thing that I've been telling all the other people that were trying to deal with this, and she agreed with me that I needed a regimen of antibiotics. But at the same time, she also explained to me that the issue with the heart, while it's something that has to be looked at and keep an eye on it, it's not as bad as it sounds, because the chambers of my heart, the 4 chambers of my heart, are the proper size right now. There's just a little hardening of one area, and that happens to a lot of men my age, especially if you're overweight, as I am. But it does not restrict my blood flow. My heart is operating at a high level. Everything seems to be pumping just as it should. And again, like I said, there's no restriction in the size of that cavity. So if it had shrunken and it was really having trouble pumping blood out of there, then I'd have an issue. I'd have a huge issue. But right now I don't. So it's something to keep an eye on. And once I can get through this leg thing, if I can get back to walking again and getting out and being a little bit more active, then hopefully, we'll be able to address it a little bit more and address my weight issues and so on and so forth. So, the leg issue, oh my goodness. This time now the infection had gone all the way up into my calf. And it was very sore and very painful. And so they gave me the 10 days of a antibiotic regimen, and I just finished it today, in fact. And the improvement was immediate and very aggressive. Still, I do have a small band in that same place that I normally do, where it has become very red and sore, and the skin is peeling off from where it was expanded too much. But it's healing, and that's good. I might call them up and say that, I'm wondering if I should need maybe a few more days of the antibiotics, just because this was a very bad infection. But it's actually pretty good right now. It's getting a lot better. And throughout all this, the pain in my left knee seems to have gone away because it hurt so much someplace else that maybe I wasn't paying attention. So I've been walking fairly well. I haven't used that big brace that I showed you. Maybe this was a little bit of a breakthrough in a way. As long as I could get, I could force myself to move through something else. Maybe it's kind of giving me the confidence that I can actually now move my leg a little bit more properly once it heals a little bit more, and then maybe I can, increase the level of exercise. And I certainly hope that's the case because, to be honest, this has been a year now, more than a year, and I'm getting a little tired of hobbling. I'm not ready to surrender my mobility and my vitality to an issue that really belongs to old people. Now, that does not mean I'm not old. I agree. I agree with you. I'm old. It's the calendar does not lie. As I have these arguments with people about COVID, and I tell them that God forbid that we had the attitude about polio that we have in this country right now about COVID, I realize that none of them know what the hell polio is because we got rid of it. And I am of that generation. I got the poke in the arm, and I also got the little cube of sugar that they gave you. I got both vaccines, and I'm actually one of the lucky ones. Though, if you look at people who are my age, and they usually have this gaping scar somewhere in their shoulder where they got the polio vaccine, I never developed that scar. In fact, I can't tell you exactly where I got it, but I did get it. And then I also had the drop in the sugar cube, which was the kind of the booster, I think. And in the 1950s, you got that because you were scared to death that you were going to spend the rest of your life in an iron lung. And I had a friend who had that problem and then spent most of his life walking around on, heavy braces and at least one arm and a crutch because of the damage done to his muscles because of polio. But we eradicated it. And yet there are so much objections about COVID, and I'll get into that later. I don't want to get into it now because I just figure I want to keep the first part a little bit light. Finally, the other part that kind of disrupted me a little bit was I spent the last few days on a hurricane watch. And we had at least the threat of a hurricane around here. Late last week, the reports were that Tropical Storm Henri it was heading up the coast and was going to make that rare possible landfall in New England. We have not had a hurricane make landfall here this far north since 1991, Hurricane Bob. And I'll tell you, that did a number on North Falmouth and some of the other communities that I love going to because that was that went right up Buzzards Bay. And that packed about 80-mile-an-hour winds, and boats were wrecked, and houses were wrecked, and trees came down. And I know at least two of the beach houses right on that beach that I like to go to were washed away by the storm surge and rebuilt. But yeah, it was a scary notion because they were saying that this one was likely to come straight up Narragansett Bay, Providence, Attleboro, Mansfield. Boom. not even a hint of a barricade between us and a storm. And while my mother and father, God bless them, they were smart enough after living through the hurricanes in 1954 and 55 and in 65, I think there was another one. They got rid of all of the tallest trees in our yard that could impact the house, that could fall down on the house under the normal course of winds from a tropical storm. They'd be blowing a certain way. And so they did a good job of taking care of that and not leaving much in the way of threat. Now, some other trees have grown up around my house and not in my property. And there's one particular dead maple, out there that A few years ago in a wintertime storm, it did drop a huge branch in my backyard. Missed the shed in the backyard. Missed the fence. Good for that. And but I had to spend a couple of days chopping the hell out of it and throwing it over the fence and getting the stuff out of my yard because it did come down like a rocket. So the rest of that tree could come down in a direction that would damage the fence out there. If it does, I got homeowners insurance. I think that would cover it. Hope so anyway. But I don't think the house is at terrible risk. Still, you don't want to see storms. I mean, you just don't want to see that kind of potential damage. Power going out. Now, Mansfield has a great municipal power system. Power hardly ever goes out here. Crossed the line in Foxborough, where I lived for about 14 years. If the storm looked at you cross-eyed, the power would go out. So I'm hopeful, as this whole thing is unfolding, I'm kind of hopeful that, it would have been kind of, I guess, fun in a bizarre sort of way to have a storm going through that you might actually be a little scared of. But then again, you think of all of the potential problems that, hardships that people with their houses would be damaged if the power went out for any length of time, things like that. You don't really want to go through that. And, we're neophytes around here when you get down to it. I mean, you take the folks on the coastline in Florida or in the Gulf Coast or, places like that get knocked with these things all the time. And you almost have to have a kind of a fatalistic viewpoint to be able to live through them and survive them year after year because they're dangerous, and especially when they're coming in there with 120-mile-an-hour winds and stuff like that. Well, of course, we all remember 2006 Hurricane Katrina. That was tragic. That was hugely tragic. So we don't want anything like that around here, and it kind of frosts me every time I hear someone say, "Oh, this storm was a dud." Well, what did you want? Did you want pestilence and destruction and hardship and deaths? And be thankful for simple blessings, believe me. So anyway, just about a few hours before this storm was supposed to hit us, it took a little bit of a jog to the west. And so then they were saying, well, it looks like we're going to miss the brunt here, but it's going to go hit in the middle of Long Island and in Connecticut. So, good for them. And then all of a sudden the storm jogged again back to the east. So what it ended up doing was it ended up skirting between Block Island and the Massachusetts Islands and kind of, instead of going up Narragansett Bay towards Providence, it hit landfall right about at Westerly, which is like at the Connecticut-Rhode Island line. And then it sort of veered off to the west and brought most of the, especially since most of the rain was on the western side of the storm anyway, so it brought most of that rain up into Connecticut and into western Massachusetts. Now, that has since kind of curled back around, and that's why we're getting heavy rains here tonight. But there's no wind involved with it. And as you can see from the video that I shot while I was out and about in in the midst of what should have been the storm, and especially taking a trip to Starbucks, which neither rain nor snow nor sleet nor gloom of night were going to keep me away from my black tea lemonade. You can see that there's really not much. There's some wind, a little bit, as you can see from the first video. But for the most part, a little bit of rain, a little bit of not much of anything. I mean, everything was battened down pretty well. People, were prepared. The airplane at the airport that you may have seen, it did not, it was prepared to be in place, but the latest weather forecasts were good enough that they had a feeling that we weren't going to get hit with the heavy winds. And good thing, my friend Alex's house down in North Falmouth was not in the path of the storm, so all was well down there. So I'm kind of glad that we didn't have to put up with that. Like I said, it's been 30 years since we had one, and even then, I don't think we got it very badly in Mansfield on that particular day. But to know that there was so much damage down the Cape and power outages for a long time. But we've had worse power outages. I remember when I lived at in Foxborough at Putnam Village, we had an October storm that was so bad that the power was out in my apartment for 6 days. Now, I could have come to my mother's house, but she wasn't comfortable with having me in the place. And so I borrowed Alex's house down in North Falmouth instead. And I stayed down there for the bulk of the time. And then when I finally found out we had power back in Foxborough, I went back and I had to throw every single bit of food out of my refrigerator because it had spoiled. So, yeah, we've had some bad ones. But here in Mansfield, we have great. I got to give my tip of the cap to the Mansfield Municipal Electric Department. They do an outstanding job. And on the rare occasions when there is an outage around here, they really hop to it and they get that fixed. So God bless them for that. So we're going to take a break now and drop in one of our happy commercials, one of which you probably haven't seen in a while, or because you haven't seen any of these podcasts for a while. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about the return of high school sports in just a few weeks.
東京2020オリンピック聖火リレーを走れるチャンス。仲間との熱いチャレンジ動画を投稿してみんなで聖火リレーを走ろう。大阪選手はリレーでチャレンジ。全力って美味しい。アクエリアス。
Hello again. Welcome back to the Owner's Box. After dark. And you know, I forgot to look up which episode this was. I think it's episode 52. But you know what? It's going to take me a couple seconds to look it up. Yes, this is the Owner's Box after dark. Episode 52. I'm going to have to put up a big cue card somewhere around here that reminds me of these episodes. Point of this segment is to let all of you know that we are just weeks away, mere days away, in fact, from the beginning of the 2021 high school football season locally, and thus the coverage of King Philip Regional High School football on North TV, North Attleboro Community Television, the Plainville Channel, with me and my friend Glenn Farley on the play-by-play for the KP Warriors as they look to improve upon the 4-3 campaign that they had during the Fall 2 season that was concluded in April. I have the schedule. We'll throw it up on the screen. And I'm very happy with the number of games that we're going to be doing. I think some of it's still in negotiation yet because we don't have an official schedule from North TV yet. When I was talking to my boss, Peter Gay, he thought that maybe we would not be doing road games this year. But King Philip only has a couple of road games. So the home schedule fit very easily. Now, I'll go over each game and I'll talk to you about what the situation is. The season starts for the King Philip Warriors on Friday, September 10th, against Boston College High School, and that is a huge challenge for the Warriors. I don't know if they've ever played BC High in the past. I know Mansfield has. I know some of our other local schools have, but that's a pretty good challenge. Now, of course, BC High is in Division 1. King Philip is in Division 2, so it's not like they would be meeting them in the postseason, but it's a good challenge. BC High has a new coach this year. They've had a bit of a disappointment going forward in the last few years, so they're going to try to get things straightened out. That game will be at 7 o'clock Friday at MacTaz Field. The following week, September 17th, the Warriors are at Needham. That's a 7 o'clock game. I don't think North TV is going to be doing that game, but stay tuned. These things could change. I even drove up to Needham to make sure there was a place where we could televise from. Needham has a field right at the bottom of their school, at the bottom of a hill, actually, And they've only got stands on one side and no press box, but there is a nice spot where we could do the game if we would commit to it on the hillside, which is right near the gymnasium of Norwood High School, Needham High School, rather. On Friday, September 24th, the North Attleboro Red Rocketeers come to MacTass Field for a 7 o'clock game. Now, Glenn and I won't be doing that game. That game would be done by the North Attleboro crew of Jared Ware and Del Malloy, and they would bring their truck and the multiple cameras and the replays and everything we don't get to use. But since North Attleboro is involved, that's why they would do that. October 1st, the Warriors are at Taunton, and that's a 7 o'clock game right now. But Taunton is very quick to reschedule their games if there's any kind of threat, like Eastern equine encephalitis or Lyme disease or God knows what other else might be in the air. So we'll see if that time stays true. Again, I'm not sure if we're going to be doing that one. I know where we could broadcast it from. We did the game there 2 years ago, 2019 actually. And I think I would love to be able to go over there and do another one. But if not, well, over the next 3 weeks after that, we've got actually the next 4 weeks, we have 3 home games. So here they are. October 8th, Attleboro is at King Philip, 7 o'clock game. October 15th, Milford, a 7 o'clock game at MacTass Field. The 22nd is the bye week. I don't know if they have any plans to fill that with any other team, and they are not playing Franklin 2 times in the season this year, and maybe those days are over. I'm not sure if that's the case, but if that's the case, as you know, King Philip has like an 18-game win streak over Franklin, including 10 on the holiday, 10 on Thanksgiving, and 8 of them on games that were played on dates other than the holiday, and most of them because they had to play 2 regular season games for a while. So if they don't play Franklin in that spot, and I don't imagine they will if that's the case, I think that's going to be a bye week. And then on the 29th, they play the Mansfield Hornets at MacTass Field. Again, a 7 o'clock game. So a nice stretch leading into the MIAA playoffs. And for the next 3 weeks after that, you have playoff games. So if King Philip is home in the playoffs, there's a very good chance that North TV would be doing that game, and that would be Glenn and me, of course. And then on November 25th, Thanksgiving Day, they would play Franklin at 10 o'clock. Now, that one is scheduled for Franklin. The first schedule I saw that came out had it as King Philip, but that would have given them like 3 holiday games in a row, which really would won 2019, and then the 2020 game, which was not really a holiday game because it was played in April of 2021. And then, a third one wouldn't have made sense to me. So then I saw a revised schedule, and that had that game at 10 o'clock in the morning at Pizzini Field in Franklin. So hopefully, I would like to think that that North TV might be able to do that game. But again, it's all up to the guys that write the checks and pay the bills over there. Now, I've got plans to do a lot of stuff for them this year. Because of the fun that I had working this past fall at other sports and then through the other seasons that I did, I am fully intending to do boys soccer, girls soccer, field hockey, and girls volleyball, as well as football. I'd be working the soccer games with Martin Graylish, who I believe has been working with North TV for a long time, and we work together well. If not him, probably Del Malloy. And field hockey, again, I think would be working with Del, but if Del can't be scheduled for a game, I've asked Glenn if he would like to join me on field hockey, and I think he'd consider it. We'll see what happens with that. And, of course, with girls volleyball, my friend Alex Salaki will be more than willing to join me. Of course, he was the former Zavarian Brothers men's volleyball coach for many years, and, of course, he lent his expertise to our Fall 2 season coverage of girls volleyball last year, and I enjoyed it immensely, and I learned an awful lot about the sport. And I got to tell you, during the Olympics this year, I watched an awful lot of the volleyball, and I said, I'm not an idiot about this stuff anymore. So I kind of understood what was going on, even though it does go at quite a faster and more athletic pace, obviously, at that level, because these are the best. So that's the plan right now. Probably about at least five football telecasts, maybe more. I don't know. Depends on the playoffs. Depends on how good King Philip is. I think King Philip's going to be a pretty good team. I definitely think that they have a terrific running game in the works. They have experience at most of the skill positions. I think defensively there's going to be a few holes to fill. I think there will be a few holes to fill on the offensive line as well. But we will see how fast they can fill those up. And to be honest, I think they've got a good shot to be a decent team and to threaten. People are telling me Mansfield looks like it could be the best in the Kelly Rex division of the Hockomock League. So we'll see what happens. If that's the case, that game in late October will be a terrific game, and I'm glad we'll have that on the schedule to do, because that is terrific. And I don't know about live streaming yet. I'd like to think that these games will be live streamed. I know, in fact, I don't know if I'll have this episode out by the time you get to hear it, but the plan was, because the Attleboro Area Golf Association's annual championship was cut down to just 2 rounds this year by bad weather on Thursday and then the hurricane watch on Sunday. The two golfers, Sean Siebert and Bill White, finished in a tie, and so they are having them show up at Heather Hill Golf Course in Plainville on Tuesday, which could be today by the time you see this, I don't know. And they're going to play a sudden death playoff to determine the champion. And so that could last 1 hole, could last 2, 3. Usually it doesn't last much longer than 3. And the guys at North TV are going to attempt to telecast it live. And they'll be out there with their cameras and with the live streaming equipment, and I'm going to watch. So hopefully the football games will be live streamed again. I don't know about the other sports. Actually, I don't know about any of this yet, because I'm just going to have to talk to Peter and find out what the story is. But for all intents and purposes, I do think that there will be a lot of great coverage coming to the folks in Plainville, and if live streamed, to anybody else who wants to watch. And again, I would ask my friends in Attleboro and Milford and Mansfield, and I don't know if I have any friends at BCI, but to feel free and watch our coverage of their games if indeed we are live streamed, because I think they'll enjoy it. And I think we put a lot of effort into it, and I really am looking forward to getting back behind the microphone again. Now the question is, am I going to have to wear a mask? Are they going to let us in the press box? All of these COVID issues that I thought would finally go away may be back. And in fact, we'll talk about that when we come back from this quick commercial break.
黒熱その生きた黒熱
Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to episode 52 of The Owner's Box After Dark. That's one way to cut out that reverb. See, the microphone is still reverberating in its own right when I hit the button. And so when I say The Owner's Box and I pause and I hit that button, you can actually hear box, 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 box. And then before I say After Dark. So I'm just going to have to say After Dark a lot faster when I do that. Only took me 52 episodes to figure that out. Okay. Mr. Music, hit it. That sound you're hearing, alarming as it may be, is the alert that you need to listen to what I'm saying right now. And that is all of the information about how you can follow, like, subscribe, whatever the case may be, and contact me for everything involving the Owner's Box and the Owner's Box After Dark. I don't know if that works that well. Okay, email. If you want to send me an email, let me know how I'm doing. It is theownersbox2020@gmail.com. If you'd like to send me snail mail, a letter, a Christmas card, nothing ticking, please. It's the address is the Owner's Box, Post Office Box 272, Mansfield, Massachusetts 02048. And of course, the website is theownersbox2020.com. And on that, you can see not much new lately because, again, that's another thing I let go during these last few weeks, but I promise I'll get back to it. I post stories. I post all sorts of information. I have restaurant reviews, coffee reviews, links to all of my podcasts, both the audio and the video ones. Excuse me, I think I just swallowed a fly or something. I don't have any flies in here. Believe me, I take care of this place. But yeah, check out the podcast, and I have a little alert up at the top left-hand side of when you go to what's called Blogging Fearlessly, but it's basically the ownersbox2020.com. You'll see a little alert up on the upper left-hand side of the page that says New Content Alert, and it will let you know if there's anything that's fresh and new by the date, and that way you'll know enough whether to say, there's nothing new, I won't waste my time today. 43,000 or more of you have checked out my website, and I really appreciate it. Please keep it up. I'm not getting any pay for it yet, but you know what? Who knows what the future may hold. Okay, and of course, you can subscribe to these podcasts, these video podcasts. Just go to YouTube. You can find my channel. Best way to do it is just to type in a search, just type in The Owner's Box After Dark, and you will find my channel, and you will find all of the episodes from number 1 through number 52 now. And you can subscribe to the channel, and you'll always get notifications that you've got a new episode ready to go. Or you can just look for the posts that I put up on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll always have links there. And or you can go to my website, and there are links immediately to all of the podcasts. So knock yourself out. And finally, I would really appreciate if you would subscribe to my original gangsta of podcasts, the Owner's Box, the audio version. I'm very proud of it. I think we are 40 episodes into that, and that's more guest-driven. And I hope to have some new guests coming up in the weeks to come. I've been kind of lax in scheduling anything again because of various issues, but I'm going to try to get back to that. And I would think that, too, also before the high school football season starts, I think Glenn Farley and I will probably get together and talk about some of what we expect to see over the next many weeks to come. All right, the Owner's Box. You can subscribe to those podcasts. Easy to find. You just go to any of the most popular podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio.com, and Odyssey, which used to be radio.com. And just subscribe. It doesn't cost you a penny. And then they will send these alerts and actually download directly to your smartphone every episode, and you can listen to it at your heart's content. So I hope you enjoy that. Again, I have to end the podcast talking about COVID-19. I wish I didn't have to, believe me. I'm getting tired of it. And I've gotten into some debates with some people lately, and I just get so incredibly frustrated with them because basically they're trying to justify arguing about whether the kids are going to be wearing masks in schools, and the poor little precious children, if this is the worst thing that happens to them in their lifetime, that they have to wear a mask for a few months, then by God, they will have lived wonderful lives. COVID-19, they should have figured out by now, this is not a laughing matter, and this is not something to take lightly. But some people still do, and it's because they take their marching orders from the likes of Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham or any of these other assholes on Fox News who, because their hero, Donald Trump, looked bad in the way he handled the whole thing, that now they've got to do everything they can to make Joe Biden look bad over something that, neither president could stop, which it was the emergence of the Delta variant. Now, Joe's having enough trouble with Afghanistan right now. And again, that's not entirely his fault. We can go back to George W. Bush for the beginning of this mess. Yes, Obama didn't deal with it very well. Yes, Trump screwed everything up and then agreed to a treaty that has put the onus on Biden to get all this done. Was everything planned in Afghanistan well? No, it was awful. Country didn't want us there. They didn't cooperate with us. And the second they were on their own, they laid down their rifles and ran like hell in the other direction. So, but that's the most I want to get political on that. COVID-19, the variant is back in place. This one seems to be attacking children more than the previous versions did. So yeah, I think we're going to see kids having to wear masks in school again. Right now, they're not talking about canceling things. They're not talking about remote learning. They're not talking about canceling sports. They're not talking about any of that. They're just talking about having kids wear masks in the schools. And I've heard all the whining and all the crying. Oh, my poor child has to breathe through his own snot. Oh, it's terrible. What awful things are happening to my child because, well, teach your damn kid how to change the mask, okay? If you're blowing snot into your mask, okay, throw it out and put on a new one. I sneeze into my mask sometimes. I can't help it. I have allergies. And if I do that and if I don't shoot the thing off into space anyway, I change it. I carry around a couple of extras. I got more in the car. I have boxes of the damn things, and I will take it and I'll crumple it up and I will throw it in a wastebasket. I won't throw it on the street or anything like that. I throw it in the wastebasket and dispose of it here at home, and I wear a new one. How hard is it to teach a kid to do that? When did these precious little babies get so protected? They don't risk polio. They hardly at all risk measles. The flu, there's shots for the flu that protect them far better than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, Fulton Pond was teeming with metals and other pollutants. I couldn't even walk into it without thinking I would grow a third leg. The air was polluted. It's crazy. All the things that were done to protect these kids suddenly has this current group of parents thinking that they're operating inside a bubble and that, oh, no, nothing can harm our children, nothing. And all the politicians are bad and Donald Trump was right. And people, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Wear the damn mask. If this is the worst thing that happens to you in your lifetime, then you have been so lucky. I've lost friends. I've had friends get COVID. And the ones who've recovered are worried about whether their heart functions or their lung functions have been compromised. I have gone 4 testings over 75, 76 weeks, and I haven't gotten it yet. And I'm going to have to be out in the public. I'm going to have to be doing my broadcasts again. I'll be in gymnasiums at some point. And I'm going to take as much care as I possibly can. And when I go out with a friend, we wear masks. I went to a nice restaurant in Sudbury the other day, and she and I are both wearing masks until we could sit down to eat. And we look around, there's nobody else wearing masks. But you know what? I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I think that masks help. And if nothing else, if I were infected and I didn't know it, my having that mask on would help keep somebody else from getting what I would have had. But I'm not infected right now. Let's hope it stays that way. Use your hand sanitizer. I've actually gone through one of my big bottles of it, and I've got 4 more of them to go, and there's plenty of it on the shelves right now. So unless we have another run on it, I think we're in good shape for a while. Wear the masks. They're not that expensive. There are plenty of them on the market. I even got some American-made N95s. I'm going to use them, if I have to, during the football season. They stay closer onto my face. They don't cause my glasses to fog up. And, I'll just have to work a little harder to enunciate, to make sure you know what I'm saying. But, I learned last year. And if it means that I stay healthy and my friends stay healthy, we will get through this. We will. But I had someone tell me today that, we're all going to survive this. Well, no, we're not all going to survive this. And that's already been proven. Almost 700,000 Americans did not survive this, including people I know and love. And it's not the disease that is so criminal as it is the ignorance and the unwillingness to take precautions. This is an unusual circumstance, people. I've said it 100 times, 1,000 times, and I'm tired of saying it, and you should be tired of hearing it. But we have to make sacrifices for a better future. And I'm getting sick of arguing with people to the point where I'm just telling them to go fuck off. And that's not nice. Please, use some common sense. Make a sacrifice or two and protect your kids, because they may be more vulnerable now than they were before. Don't listen to the Fox News version of all this. Let's get through this. I'm tired of this. I want a normal life again. And it was nice to think that during the summer we had a little bit of a normal life back, but even during my vacation week I could figure out that no, it wasn't normal. And that's when I started wearing masks again. I love you all. I thank you for joining me on the podcast. Please stick around. Join me again when I do another one. And watch our football games. Good night, everybody.